A small canoe drifts in the vast Pacific, its wooden hull slicing through waves under a sky full of stars. The ocean stretches endlessly in all directions, a deep blue abyss hiding secrets of journeys taken centuries ago. On board, a Polynesian navigator stands, eyes locked onto the heavens. There is no compass, no map, only the silent language of the stars, the whispers of the waves, and the movements of birds guiding him. His ancestors have done this before. They knew that beyond the horizon lay islands unseen, worlds yet to be discovered. This was not just survival, it was destiny. For thousands of years, Polynesians have been called the greatest navigators in human history. But their true story is even more incredible than legend suggests. Modern science has finally uncovered proof of their epic voyages, not just through ancient carvings or oral traditions, but through something far more undeniable, their DNA. Within every Polynesian today lies a genetic map of journeys spanning thousands of miles, revealing how a small group of people transformed the Pacific into their home. This genetic trail confirms not only where they came from, but also the unimaginable distances they traveled and the groundbreaking discoveries they made. Their story begins over 5,000 years ago, far from the islands they would later call home. Tracing their ancestry, scientists have discovered that Polynesians share an astonishing 79% of their DNA with East Asians and 21% with Melanesians. This mix is no coincidence. It's evidence of an incredible migration. The first Polynesians were not born in the islands, but in the distant lands of Taiwan and Southeast Asia. They were Austronesians, expert sailors who ventured into the unknown, eventually arriving in Melanesia. It was here, in places like Papua New Guinea and the Solomon Islands, that their DNA mixed with the local people, creating a new identity, one that would go on to shape the future of the Pacific. But their journey didn't stop there. Over the next few centuries, their descendants set sail again, moving farther into the unknown. They became the Lapita people, the first explorers of the Pacific. Their distinct pottery, found across islands thousands of miles apart, tells the story of their relentless expansion. Yet, somewhere along the way, they abandoned pottery altogether, a mystery that still puzzles scientists today. What drove them forward? Why did they leave behind familiar lands for the vast emptiness of the ocean? The answer lies in their DNA. Unlike other early civilizations that settled and stayed in one place, Polynesians carried something unique, a founder effect. This meant that just a small group of ancestors gave rise to an entire civilization. This genetic bottleneck made them distinct, shaping both their physical traits and their spirit of exploration. They weren't just travelers, they were pioneers, pushing beyond the limits of the known world. With time, they mastered the greatest challenge of all, the Pacific itself. Using techniques passed down through generations, they read the sky like a map and the ocean like a road. They knew which stars rose and fell with the seasons, which cloud patterns hinted at land, and how the behavior of birds signaled islands beyond sight. These were skills that no other civilization possessed, allowing them to cross thousands of miles with precision. Their greatest journey was about to begin. From Samoa and Tonga, they launched the most ambitious migration in human history. In just 500 years, an instant in the timeline of civilizations, they settled every corner of Polynesia. They reached Rarotonga in the Cook Islands, spread eastward to Tahiti, and then, against all odds, voyaged thousands of miles to the edges of the Pacific. Hawaii, Easter Island, and New Zealand, each one conquered by their legendary skills. But the true scale of their achievement was written not in stories, but in their DNA. Every Polynesian today carries the genetic proof of this grand odyssey. Their bloodlines trace back to those first fearless explorers who set out with nothing but the stars as their guide. The Pacific wasn't just a barrier, it was their highway. Polynesians have long been seen as one of the most mysterious civilizations in human history. Their culture, language, and traditions are unique, yet their origins were hidden for centuries. Were they always islanders? Or did they come from a distant land, carrying the knowledge and skills that allowed them to dominate the vast Pacific? The answer lay not in ancient artifacts or myths, but in something far more powerful: DNA. For years, scientists believed that Polynesians were a single, homogeneous group, descendants of a single migration. But modern genetic analysis has shattered that assumption. Polynesians are not just one people. They are a fusion of two very different worlds. Their DNA reveals that their ancestry is split. 79% of their genetic makeup comes from East Asia, while 21% comes from Melanesia. This blend holds the key to understanding their extraordinary journey. The genetic trail leads back thousands of years to Taiwan, where the first ancestors of Polynesians lived. These people, the Austronesians, were some of the earliest seafarers in history. They spread from Taiwan to the Philippines, Indonesia, and beyond, carrying with them a language that would eventually evolve into the many Polynesian dialects spoken today. But something unexpected happened along the way. As they pushed deeper into the Pacific, these early voyagers encountered the Melanesians, the indigenous people of Papua New Guinea, the Solomon Islands, and Vanuatu. The meeting of these two groups didn't just lead to cultural exchanges. It changed their DNA forever. Polynesians inherited their navigation skills and language from their Austronesian ancestors, but their physical traits and some of their resilience came from their Melanesian lineage. However, the blending of these two groups wasn't equal. DNA evidence shows that Melanesian men contributed very little to Polynesian genetics. Instead, most of the mixing happened through Austronesian men and Melanesian women. This is why the genetic signature of Polynesians is dominated by their East Asian ancestry, while Melanesian genes appear in smaller but crucial ways. One of the strongest genetic markers of Polynesian identity is their haplogroup B4A1A1, also known as the Polynesian Motif. This maternal lineage, passed down from mother to child, is found throughout Polynesia, but has its roots in Taiwan and Southeast Asia. This means that while Polynesians settled the Pacific, their maternal ancestors can be traced back thousands of miles to an ancient homeland. But what makes Polynesians even more unique is what's missing from their DNA. While their genetic ancestors lived in Taiwan and Melanesia, Polynesians are genetically distinct from both groups today. This is because of a phenomenon known as the founder effect. A small population of voyagers branched off from a larger group, leading to genetic isolation. Over generations, this caused Polynesians to develop a distinct genetic identity, separate from their parent populations. This genetic distinction is why Polynesians today have unique physical traits, from their athletic builds to their remarkable endurance. Their genetics also carry clues about their health, including a higher risk for certain metabolic disorders and severe cases of COVID-19. These traits are not accidents. They are written in the genetic code passed down by their ancestors, shaped by thousands of years of survival in one of the harshest environments on Earth. The DNA of Polynesians is more than just a record of their ancestry. It is proof of their journey. It tells us where they came from, how they adapted, and how they thrived against impossible odds. With every discovery, the genetic puzzle of Polynesia becomes clearer, revealing a people whose origins lie in two worlds, but whose destiny was always the ocean. The vast Pacific, stretching over millions of square miles, was once considered an insurmountable barrier. To early European explorers, it seemed impossible that humans could have crossed such an immense ocean without compasses, maps, or modern technology. Yet centuries before them, the Polynesians had already accomplished this feat, settling thousands of islands across the Pacific in one of the most remarkable migrations in human history. For a long time, the mystery remained. How did they do it? Archaeologists had theories. Linguists traced their language roots. But the final answer lay in an unexpected place: DNA. Modern genetic research has revealed something extraordinary. Polynesians did not migrate slowly, step by step. Instead, their expansion across the Pacific happened at a rapid, almost unbelievable pace. Polynesian DNA shows that, starting from Samoa, they spread outwards, reaching different islands within just 500 years. In the timeline of human migrations, this was a blink of an eye. But how did they move so fast? The answer lies in their unmatched sailing abilities. Unlike any other seafaring culture, Polynesians perfected a system of navigation that allowed them to travel thousands of miles with stunning accuracy. They didn't need written charts or compasses. They relied on something even more powerful: nature itself. They read the stars like maps, memorized ocean currents, and understood wind patterns in ways that even modern sailors struggle to comprehend. Scientific studies confirm that Polynesians used a technique called dead reckoning, where they mentally tracked their position based on speed, time, and directional shifts. They watched the skies to determine latitude, followed the movements of seabirds to locate land, and even observed subtle changes in waves to predict islands beyond the horizon. This wasn't just guesswork, it was an advanced science, passed down through generations. But navigation alone wasn't enough. They needed the right vessels to carry them across vast distances. Polynesians built outrigger canoes, fast, stable, and capable of handling rough ocean waters. These boats were designed for speed and endurance, allowing them to travel for weeks at a time, carrying entire families, livestock, and supplies. With these skills and tools, Polynesians launched into the unknown. From Samoa and Tonga, they set sail, reaching the Cook Islands around 830 AD. From there, they expanded rapidly, moving eastward to Tahiti, the Marquesas, and beyond. By the 12th century, they had settled some of the most remote islands on Earth: Hawaii, Easter Island, and finally, New Zealand. Every island they reached became a new home, but their journey didn't end there. Even after settling, Polynesians continued to voyage between islands, maintaining a vast network of trade and cultural exchange. Their DNA, scattered across thousands of miles, serves as a living map of their migration, proving that these were not accidental drifts but intentional, expertly planned journeys. For centuries, Western historians doubted the true scale of Polynesian exploration. Many believed that the islands had been settled by chance, with canoes randomly drifting in storms. But modern DNA research tells a different story, one of deliberate exploration, unparalleled navigation skills, and an unbreakable connection to the ocean. For centuries, the Pacific Ocean was seen as an impenetrable frontier, a vast and endless blue that separated worlds. Yet, hidden within the DNA of Polynesians is evidence of something extraordinary, a direct link to a land thousands of miles away. Science has now confirmed what legends and artifacts have long suggested. Polynesians and Native Americans met centuries before Europeans arrived in the Pacific. But how? And who reached whom first? The story begins with a mystery. When European explorers first arrived in Polynesia, they were stunned to find a crop that had no reason to be there: the sweet potato. This plant is native to South America, yet was being cultivated across Polynesia long before any recorded contact with the continent. Some dismissed this as a coincidence, perhaps carried by ocean currents. But the deeper scientists looked, the clearer it became that this was no accident. The real breakthrough came not from plants or myths, but from genetics. Recent DNA studies have uncovered undeniable proof. Polynesians and Native Americans share a genetic link, dating back to around 1200 AD. The evidence was found in the DNA of Polynesian islanders, particularly in the Marquesas and Easter Island. Within their genome were traces of Colombian Native American ancestry, proving that their ancestors had direct contact with people from the South American mainland. This revelation raised a bold question. Did Polynesians sail to South America, or did Native Americans voyage into the Pacific? Thor Heyerdahl, the famous Norwegian explorer, believed that Native Americans had sailed westward into Polynesia. To prove it, he built a traditional reed raft, the Kon-Tiki, and successfully drifted from Peru to an atoll in the South Pacific. But while his experiments showed that such a journey was possible, modern evidence overwhelmingly supports the opposite conclusion. Polynesians were the ones who made the journey first. Polynesians were master navigators, capable of intentional long-distance voyages. Unlike Native Americans, who had no evidence of oceanic exploration, Polynesians had already settled some of the most remote islands on Earth. Their advanced sailing technology, their ability to track celestial navigation, and their deep knowledge of the ocean made them the most likely candidates for this transoceanic contact. DNA evidence suggests that a single contact event occurred somewhere in eastern Polynesia, possibly in the Marquesas, before the Polynesians reached Easter Island. This means that long before Columbus set sail, two civilizations, separated by thousands of miles of open ocean, found each other in one of history's greatest untold encounters. But the most fascinating detail is what happened afterward. Unlike the European conquests that followed centuries later, this meeting didn't lead to war or destruction. Instead, it led to exchange. Polynesians likely brought new ideas, stories, and even genetic lineage back into their society. Despite this groundbreaking discovery, many questions remain. What motivated Polynesians to embark on such a journey? Did they return more than once? And could there still be more clues, hidden in the DNA of modern populations, waiting to be uncovered? One thing is certain, Polynesians were not just islanders, they were explorers, scientists, and pioneers of the ancient world. Their voyages connected lands that were never meant to meet, proving that the Pacific was never a barrier, but a bridge. For thousands of years, the Pacific was more than just an ocean. It was a vast, living network of highways, connecting islands spread across millions of square miles. The Polynesians, often called the greatest navigators in history, mastered these waters, sailing from one distant shore to another with unmatched precision. But how? How did they navigate a world with no landmarks, no maps, and no written records? The answer lies in a lost science, a way of reading the ocean that modern sailors are only beginning to understand. Unlike European explorers who relied on compasses and charts, Polynesians had something even more powerful, their knowledge of nature. They used the sky, the waves, and even the behavior of birds to map their routes, creating a mental blueprint of the Pacific long before cartographers put ink to paper. The stars were their guides. Polynesian navigators memorized the positions of hundreds of stars, knowing exactly where each one would rise and set, depending on their location. Certain stars aligned with specific islands, allowing voyagers to track their progress across the ocean. But their abilities went far beyond just stargazing. They could read the ocean itself. Polynesians understood how waves interacted with land, how swells reflected off distant islands long before they were visible, and how currents could lead them home. Even in cloudy weather, when the stars were hidden, they relied on these subtle cues, feeling the rhythm of the sea through the hull of their canoes. But perhaps the most fascinating part of Polynesian navigation was their use of seabirds. Certain birds, like the frigate bird, never land on water, meaning if they were spotted flying in a particular direction, land was guaranteed to be nearby. Polynesian navigators watched these birds carefully, using their flight patterns as signposts leading them to new islands. Their vessels were just as impressive as their skills. Polynesians built outrigger canoes, perfectly engineered for both speed and stability. These boats could withstand the roughest ocean conditions, allowing entire communities to travel together. Unlike the small, fragile rafts of other ancient cultures, these canoes were designed for endurance, capable of crossing thousands of miles in a single journey. But why did they embark on such dangerous voyages in the first place? The answer remains a mystery. Some scientists believe that overpopulation and resource scarcity pushed them to explore new lands. Others argue that the spirit of adventure and curiosity was deeply embedded in their culture. What is undeniable is that once they set sail, they moved faster than any migration in human history. In just 500 years, they settled almost the entire Polynesian triangle, from the Cook Islands to Hawaii, from Easter Island to New Zealand. This wasn't by chance. Their journeys were planned, calculated, and executed with the kind of precision that modern sailors can only dream of. For a long time, historians doubted that Polynesians could have achieved such an astonishing feat. Some believed they drifted accidentally, while others insisted they were primitive islanders incapable of mastering the sea. But today, DNA evidence, combined with archaeological and linguistic studies, has proven what Polynesians knew all along. They were the greatest voyagers the world has ever seen. Polynesia is a vast world of islands scattered across the Pacific, but its people share something remarkable, a common genetic signature that connects them, no matter how far apart they live. This isn't just coincidence. It's the result of a phenomenon known as the founder effect, a genetic event that shaped the identity of Polynesians and made them one of the most distinct populations on Earth. The story begins thousands of years ago when a small group of Austronesian voyagers set sail from Southeast Asia. They didn't just leave their homeland behind. They left behind the majority of their genetic diversity. The people who reached Polynesia were not a random mix of their parent populations. They were a small, specialized group, carrying only a fraction of the original gene pool. This meant that as their descendants spread across the Pacific, their genetic traits became more and more distinct from those who stayed behind. One of the clearest signs of this is in their mitochondrial DNA, mtDNA, which is inherited exclusively from the mother. Almost all Polynesians share a unique mTNA marker known as haplogroup B4A1A1, also called the Polynesian Motif. This marker traces back to their Austronesian ancestors and proves a direct genetic link between Polynesians and the ancient seafarers of Taiwan and the Philippines. But the founder effect didn't just define Polynesian ancestry, it also influenced their health. Because Polynesians descended from a small initial population, certain genetic traits became much more common, including those related to metabolism and disease risk. Studies show that Polynesians have a higher likelihood of developing type 2 diabetes, obesity, and even severe cases of COVID-19. These aren't just random health conditions, they are consequences of the genetic bottleneck their ancestors passed through. However, the founder effect also had advantages. Polynesians developed exceptional physical endurance and strength, traits that were crucial for survival in the open ocean and on isolated islands. Their ability to store energy efficiently helped them thrive in environments where food supply was unpredictable. Over generations, these traits became ingrained in their DNA, helping them adapt to life in some of the most remote places on Earth. But perhaps the most fascinating impact of the founder effect is what it tells us about their history. Polynesians may have originated from a blend of Austronesian and Melanesian ancestors, but over time, their genetic identity became something entirely new. They were no longer just an extension of their parent populations. They were a people uniquely shaped by the ocean, their voyages, and their isolation. Today, genetic studies continue to reveal new insights into the Polynesian past. Every DNA sample, every genetic marker is like a map, tracing the incredible journey of a civilization that defied the limits of exploration. Their genes are more than just a record of their ancestry. They are a testament to their resilience, their ingenuity, and their unmatched ability to conquer the Pacific. The Polynesians were never meant to be a forgotten people. Their story is written in the very fabric of their DNA, an unbroken thread that connects them to their ancestors who set sail into the unknown. But their legacy isn't just about the past. It's about how that DNA continues to shape who they are today. Across the Pacific, from Hawaii to New Zealand, Polynesians share not just culture and language, but a genetic heritage that sets them apart from any other population on Earth. Modern science has allowed us to trace that ancestry, uncovering details that were once hidden. Polynesians carry a unique blend of genetic markers that link them back to Taiwanese Austronesians and Melanesians, but they are also something more, a people shaped by isolation, selection, and adaptation. This genetic distinctiveness is why Polynesians, despite their geographic spread, have so many physical and biological traits in common. One of the most fascinating aspects of Polynesian DNA is how it reveals their past migrations. Through genetic mapping, scientists can track the precise movement of Polynesians across the Pacific, proving how rapidly they expanded and how interconnected their societies remained. Even thousands of miles apart, the genetic signatures remained the same, evidence of a civilization that never lost touch with its roots. But DNA doesn't just tell us where they came from. It tells us how they survived. Polynesians developed genetic adaptations that helped them thrive in some of the most remote and challenging environments on Earth. Their ability to store energy efficiently allowed them to withstand long sea voyages and food shortages, a trait that once gave them an advantage, but now contributes to higher rates of metabolic disorders. Recent research has even uncovered links between Polynesian ancestry and certain health risks, including an increased likelihood of severe reactions to COVID-19. This discovery isn't just about history, it's about the future. Understanding these genetic factors could help Polynesians today manage and prevent diseases that disproportionately affect their communities. Yet, for all the scientific advancements in decoding Polynesian DNA, one thing remains clear. Their identity is more than just genetic markers. Their legacy isn't just in their blood but in their stories, their traditions, and their spirit of exploration. The same DNA that once drove their ancestors to push beyond the horizon still exists today, carried in the genes of millions across the Pacific. The Polynesians may have set sail centuries ago, but their journey didn't end with the last island they settled. Today, their story continues, not just in history books, but in their very DNA. The genetic blueprint of Polynesians holds a record of their origins, their migrations, and the challenges they faced. But more than that, It connects them to one another, across thousands of miles of ocean, as a people bound by both blood and legacy. Every new discovery in Polynesian DNA reshapes our understanding of their past. We now know that their ancestors set out from Taiwan, blended with Melanesians in the islands of the Western Pacific, and then, in an explosion of exploration, settled almost every habitable island within the Polynesian Triangle in just 500 years. Their genetic markers tell us not only where they came from, but how they adapted, thrived, and evolved in near-total isolation. But DNA also reveals something else. Polynesians were not alone. Their contact with Native Americans, long debated and dismissed as speculation, has now been confirmed by genetic evidence. Around 1200 AD, Polynesians and indigenous South Americans met, exchanged culture, and left traces of their ancestry in each other's bloodlines. The sweet potato, stone carving traditions, and shared linguistic clues were just the beginning. The real proof was hidden in their DNA all along. Polynesian genetics also hold clues to their health today. The founder effect, which made them a unique people, also led to genetic bottlenecks that increased their risk for conditions like obesity, type 2 diabetes, and even severe cases of COVID-19. Understanding these risks isn't just about looking back. It's about using genetics to build a healthier future for Polynesian populations today. Yet, for all the science and technology that allows us to map their genes, Polynesian identity is more than just DNA. It is their history, their traditions, their resilience. It is the unbreakable connection between the past and the present. Their ancestors may have disappeared over the horizon, but their legacy remains in the blood of millions, still carried by the currents of time.